All right, you guys, we are going to be looking at inverses today. Um, so up to this point, we have done everything, just so you know. So like I have given you like sine at pi over 3, and then you've gone to this spot on your unit circle and you found sine for me. You found the y over the r. Now we're going to be going backwards, actually, where I'm going to be giving you what's on the right side of that equation, and you're going to go backwards and give me the left. That's what inverses are. Okay? On the back side of your laminated sheet, you have on the bottom left corner, you have something about inverses there that tell you where your intervals are restricted to. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but basically, and you have more on your laminated sheet than I have on this screen up here. But you can see that sine is restricted to this area right here, and that means that it's between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2, which basically means that it's in those two quadrants. So you can kind of see where that is on your unit circle and go from there. But look for that on your unit circle. Basically, and I'll talk more about why you have, well, actually, no, I'll do that right now. The reason you have restricted intervals is this, you guys, okay? Here's the sine function, okay? This is how the sine function works. It looks like that. If you remember way back when, in order to have a function, it had to pass the vertical line test, which means you have to be able to draw a vertical line anywhere along that graph, and it can only hit the line in one spot, which it does right there. But if you do the inverse is where you switch the x and the y around. And if you do the inverse sine function looks something like that. And now if you draw a vertical line, it doesn't pass the vertical line test because it crosses a vertical line in more than one spot. And so that's a problem, and it is no longer a function. So what they do is they restrict your answers and say, you know what, you can only have answers that are between here and here. Because if I only accept answers between here and here, now it would pass the vertical line test and it would become a function. And that's why you have restricted intervals when you're doing inverses, just so you know. Okay, so that's what those restricted intervals mean, and I'll show you how we're going to use them in a minute. Okay. We are going to do a whole bunch of problems here. I am going to split the screen. You are going to want to pull out your laminated sheet if you don't already have it out, which you probably already do. And you are also going to want to pull out your unit circles because mine up here is a little small for you to see probably. Okay? What I'm asking you to find is this little -1 symbol up here on your example here means to find the inverse. And here's what that's asking you to do. What that means is this. It means sine at some spot on the unit circle is 1. And what you're going to do is you're going to figure out this spot. Okay, so we're going to go backwards now. Sine at some spot on the unit circle is 1, and you are going to figure out that spot. Okay, I want you to remember that sine is your y over your r. So if you're looking at your unit circle, this is the spot right here where your y value or your sine value is 1. And so your angle that happens at, the angle where your y over your 1 is 1, or where your sine is 1, happens to be at pi over 2. So the answer to this is just pi over 2, and you're done. Of course, it's going to get a little harder than this. Okay. Some books, our book does not do it, but some books, and you will see this on the ACT tests, and you will see it in future math classes, some books use arc, the word arc right here. Arc means the same thing as this, cosine -1 of 0. Arc is the same thing as doing inverse, just so you know. And either way, whether you write it as cosine -1 or whether you write it as arc cosine, that problem is asking you to figure out this. Cosine at some spot on the unit circle is 0. Okay. Cosine is your x value. So basically you're being able to ask where you're being asked to find where your x value is 0. And there are actually two spots where your x value is 0. Your x value is 0 here at pi over 2, and your x value is 0 down here at 3 pi over 2. Okay, so you have pi over 2 and you have 3 pi over 2. However, what you need to do is you need to make sure that your answers are in the restricted interval, okay? This is a cosine equation, and on your laminated sheet, it says that cosine's restricted interval is between 0 and pi, which means you can only have answers that are between 0 and pi. So it can only have answers that are in this region right here, which means that pi over 2 answer is good, but that 3 pi over 2 has to get the x. Okay. I do want you, however, even though you're going to cross out a lot of answers, I want you to get in the habit of looking for every possible spot it happens at, because you're going to need to do that later. Later on, we're going to do something where we drop the restricted interval piece of it, and you need to know every spot. And so just get in the habit of finding every spot, even the ones that aren't in the restricted interval. Okay, here's another one, very similar. You see the word arc again. Again, the word arc means nothing more than sine -1 or inverse sine. Okay, and when you're doing inverse sine, again, that means that sine at some spot on the unit circle is -1/2, and you have to figure out what that spot is. Okay, sine is your y value, and so you're looking for where your y values are -1/2. And my y value is -1/2 down here at 11 pi over 6, and my y value is also -1/2 right here at 7 pi over 6. So again, I have two spots, 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. Okay, excuse my phone. I need to, again, look at the restricted intervals. So I'm looking at my laminated sheet, and my sine values are restricted to between -pi over 2 and +pi over 2. So my sine values are between -pi over 2 and +pi over 2. My sine values are restricted to this area right here, between -pi over 2 and +pi over 2, which means that my 11 pi over 6 answer can stay, and my 7 pi over 6 answer is going to get the x. Okay. And the next one, this is a tangent one. Okay, tangent ones get a little bit tricky, but this is asking you to figure out tangent, again, at some spot on the unit circle is -√3. Okay. Tangent, remember, is y over x, so you're actually going to have to do some calculating. First of all, it's negative. It's -√3, and the only spots where tangent is negative is in quadrant 2 up here and in quadrant 4. So I know it's going to be somewhere in one of those. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at these 5 spots, and first of all, I'm going to look right up here at 0, 1. And if I do tangent, I have 1 over 0. And 1 over 0 is undefined, which is not going to give me -√3. Okay, then I'm going to go here, and if I go here, I have 0 over -1, which is 0. That's not going to do it. Then I'm going to go here, because I have √2 over 2 over -√2 over 2. Well, if I have the same number over the same number, only it's negative, this is going to be -1. That's not going to be it. So you're going to, when you do tangent, if you don't know this right off the top of your head, do some eliminating. Okay, I'm going to erase those. Those aren't it. So now I'm going to check this spot up here. Okay, and when I check that spot up there, I do my y over my x, and I have √3 over 2 over -1/2. Okay, I flip that, the 2's cancel, and I do happen to get -√3. Okay, so you're going to have to, if you can't do that in your head, you're going to actually have to physically write that out and calculate it. Okay, so one spot where tangent is -√3 is at 2 pi over 3. Okay, so one spot where that happens at is 2 pi over 3. And then I think you can probably figure out that the other spot is going to be down here at 5 pi over 3, where it's +1/2 and -√3 over 2. So 5 pi over 3. Okay. And if you look at tangent's restricted intervals, your answers can be for tangent between -pi over 2 and +pi over 2, which means that that 5 pi over 3 answer can stay, and the 2 pi over 3 can't count right now. All right, here's an arc cosecant one. Okay, and again, this is the same as doing cosecant -1 of 2√3 over 3. Okay, which is asking you to figure out cosecant, oops, I'm sorry, at some spot on the unit circle is 2 root 3 over 3. Okay, now you can do this a couple different ways, you guys. You can leave it as cosecant and you can actually go figure out cosecant on the unit circle at every spot. So like at this spot, cosecant would be, cosecant is r over y. So cosecant would be 1 over 1/2, which is going to give you 2. And you can kind of go around the unit circle and figure that out. Or another trick to use that might be helpful is cosecant is the reciprocal to sine. So when I'm doing cosecant, I can find the reciprocal and I can, the place where cosecant is 2 root 3 over 3 is the same spot where sine is 3 over 2 root 3. Okay, so I flip and I flip. Okay, and then you wouldn't leave a radical in the denominator, right? So you would have 3 root 3 over 6, which would be root 3 over 2. And now it's a lot easier to do. Now I'm looking at the spot on my unit circle for where my sine value or my y value is root 3 over 2. Okay, and I can see that my y value is root 3 over 2 up here at pi over 3. And it is also root 3 over 2 at here at 2 pi over 3. Okay, so my two spots are 2 pi over 3 and 1 pi over 3. Okay, sines, restricted intervals, oops, sorry, their answers have to be between here and here. Okay, and so that means that the pi over 3 is good and the 2 pi over 3 has to go. Okay, we must be getting close to the end here. All right, now a couple different ones. Here, you have to do, just like any math problem, you have to do what's inside parentheses first. Okay, so I have to do this first. And it's been a while since we've done this, but what that is asking you to do is to go to 5 pi over 4 on your unit circle. Okay, so I go to 5 pi over 4 on my unit circle, which is right down here. I need to find sine. Sine is your y value. So my sine at 5 pi over 4 is going to be negative root 2 over 2. Okay, and then that's cosine negative 1. Okay, so I bring that down. Now, what I have, if I look at just what I have right now, now it's asking me to figure out cosine at some spot on the unit circle is negative root 2 over 2. And I have to figure out where that's at. Okay, so I'm looking for where my x values are negative root 2 over 2. And my x values are negative root 2 over 2 here at 3 pi over 4. And my x values are also negative root 2 over 2 here at 5 pi over 4. So I'm going to use 3 pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4. Okay, now I have to look at restricted intervals, and I have a cosine function in this problem and I have a sine function in this problem. And people sometimes wonder which restricted interval to use. The negative 1 is above the cosine up here, so you're going to use cosine's restricted intervals. Okay, so cosine can have answers between here and here, which means that the 2 pi over, or the 3 pi over 4 is going to stay, and the 5 pi over 4 has to get crossed off. Okay, and let's see where we're at here. One last one, I believe. Okay, again, you're going to have to do inside the parentheses first. So I'm going to do this first. This is asking me to figure out secant at some spot is negative 2. And by the way, secant is the reciprocal to cosine. So this is the same as figuring out where cosine is negative 1/2, because I can flip that. Your x values are negative 1/2 right here at 2 pi over 3 and right here at 4 pi over 3. I'm going to use secants or cosines restricted intervals, which means I can have answers between here and here. So the 2 pi over 3 is going to be the answer to that part of it. Okay, now I bring down the 2 and I have sine in front. Okay, so I bring that down. Now I have to take 2 times 2 pi over 3, which obviously becomes 4 pi over 3. And now I have to find sine at 4 pi over 3. Okay, so I'm going to go down here to 4 pi over 3. Sine is your y value, and my y value at 4 pi over 3 is negative root 3 over 2. And I am done. Okay, and I think we can be okay because the rest of these are all the same. Okay, really quickly then on your calculators, you guys, you need to just punch this in. You have above the sine key, you have the sine -1 right there. And basically you're going to press on the calculator, you're going to press second sine of 7/8, okay? And what your calculator will spit out for you is the answer that this is true, that this happens at, where sine is 7/8. Now, you got to know this. If your calculator is in degree mode, it's going to spit out your answer in degrees. If your calculator is in radian mode, it's going to spit out your answer in radians. So when you do this, you guys, you're going to get some different answers, okay? So check what mode you're in and see what happens there. I'm going to just punch mine in real quick. My calculator happens to be in radian mode, and if your calculator is in radian mode, it should give you 1.065 for an answer. So in radian mode, you can check this. You get 1.065. And in degree mode, I got to change my calculator here just a minute. In degree mode, you should get 61.04 degrees. Okay, so punch that in and check that out. Then, on what you need to know here is that you don't have a second secant. And so here's what you're going to do, you guys. Okay, you don't have secant -1. Some people think that you're going to do cosine, just cosine then, and that doesn't work either. Here's how you have to enter these in when you don't have buttons for them. Secant is the same as 1 over cosine. Okay, so here's how you have to enter this in. You have to enter this in as cosine -1 of 1/3. Okay, so on your calculator, you're going to press cosine -1, 1/3. Again, if you're in degree mode, you're going to get an answer in degrees. And if you're in radian mode, you're going to get an answer in radian mode. And that, what your calculator is telling you is where that occurs on the unit circle. Where is your cosine 1/3? Where is your secant 3? It's the same spot. Okay. So I'm just going to punch this in quick so that we can check, you guys can check your answers. If you're in degree mode, you should get 70.53 degrees. And if you are in radian mode, you should get 1.23 radians. Okay, so you can check those. Okay, here is going to be your homework, you guys. So you can check that out. Oops. You only have to do numbers 1 through 6 on the worksheet. Okay, so you're going to do those problems out of the book, 1 through 6 on the worksheet. You'll get the rest of the worksheet the next day, but you don't know how to do it yet. So just do 1 through 6 because some interesting things happen after that. Okay, good luck.